Good morning, everyone. My name is Graham, and I'm the land steward with Goose Pond Sanctuary. Today I'm at Erstad Prairie for one main reason, and that is to show everyone the explosion of wild lupin that just started to bloom out here. As far as spring flowers go, this is probably one of the most striking and intense blooms that you'll get to see. I know there's a lot of interesting things blooming in the fall as well, like pale purple coneflower and asters and such, but this one is definitely one of my favorites. So this is Erstad Prairie, and it is full of lupin. This is excellent habitat for it. It's really open and it's sandy here, despite being so close to water, which you can see in the distance over there. So it's really sandy, which the lupin like. I'll get you a close-up on some of these flowers here. There's some bees buzzing around in this bush. Today so far I've seen a lot of bumblebees, but also some honeybees. I think somebody has a colony nearby, and the honeybees are capitalizing on this early bloom. So the prairie I'm standing in right now is about 7 acres, maybe 8, and it's restored. So we planted it and actively manage it. It has really good structure, which to me in this situation means that tall grasses are present, but they're not dominating. And so you have this diverse topography in the prairie of tall grasses next to shorter open patches. And this stuff is just thick in here. I mean, look at that, it's just purple out there. So lupin is a pretty cool plant. During collection time, I really like to collect it also. It's got little bean pods, sort of, because it's a legume. And if you don't get to it in time, those pods will eventually dry out and then kind of explode and send seeds everywhere. So you got to be on top of it during seed collection. So this restoration is a little bit older, and in front of me now, across the path, is mostly just a brome field, but we did interseed it recently, and there's some good plants coming up that I saw walking around earlier. There's stiff goldenrod, more lupin, golden alexanders, and some other stuff. So just a little more background on Erstad Prairie, where this parcel is adjacent to the Schenneberg waterfowl production area, which is owned and managed by Fish and Wildlife Service. And so we're kind of nested within their acres, and together we make up this really diverse landscape that has so much wildlife on it. It has some of the most confirmed species during the breeding bird atlas. And just since I was over here today, there have been pelicans, willow flycatchers, northern flickers, saw a bluebird, tree swallows, and there's a bunch of other stuff. It's easy walking here, and there's a lot of really cool birds. I would recommend that you bring binoculars, in particular for the marsh out there. It's not super deep, and it holds redheads and sometimes nesting swans, and like I said, pelicans. There's black-crowned night herons, other wading birds, waterfowl, all kinds of stuff out there. I've also seen a few monarchs today because this place does have milkweeds and a lot of places for them to nectar. I'm not sure if they're laying eggs yet. I'm not positive on that chronology, but if not now, then it should be starting fairly soon. Otherwise, these ones might still be on their way north. One other thing, it's not plant related, is this little square platform I got here. This is a turn platform, and And an Eagle Scout made a bunch of these, I think about 90 of them last year, for the Wisconsin DNR. And so terns are tricky because they nest in big open water marshes, and due to landscape change like urbanization and agriculture, runoff around those larger wetlands and lakes spikes really hard, and so water levels rise unexpectedly. That's bad for the terns because they nest just a few inches above the water usually, and so if it rises too much, it'll take over the nest and drown out the eggs. And so how this platform works basically is you've got foam slats in here. This is all one piece. Foam slats in the sides, and then a little mesh netting on top. And you keep it in place by driving a pole into the bottom and then putting the pole through this little loop here. And so then as the water fluctuates, then this platform can rise and fall with it, preserving those nests and the eggs so they don't get drowned out. Schoenberg Marsh, it does have terns. I've seen black terns and common terns here. These tern platforms are primarily for foresters' terns, but I thought this was an appropriate site to share that platform design with you anyway, because this is still a good marsh to view terns at. So I'm going to keep this update pretty short today, but while you are here, I'm just going to wander around and point out a couple other plants that we've got at Erstad Prairie. So here's one of them. This is Golden Alexander. It looks vaguely like wild parsnip, but it blooms earlier and the umbels are much smaller. These have been blooming around Goose Pond really vigorously over the last week. Stuff has been growing like crazy. Right here is a common milkweed sprouting up. Obviously we've got these Lupin all over the place. This one down here with these larger leaves is stiff goldenrod. The leaves are a little fuzzy, and the other way I know it's stiff goldenrod is because it has this stalk from last year. And they've got a pretty distinct flower head on them, and so that's another good indicator. Here's another plant you guys might be familiar with. Just gonna take a leaf. This is yarrow. It's got a real feathery look, and so this will have a white seed head on it eventually later this season. Well, here's another one. This is a really good plant, compass plant. It's named compass plant because the leaves orient themselves north and south, and so this is general. If there's a bunch of clumps of them, you can see that they do it pretty effectively though. But that is so that they can absorb as much sunlight during the morning and afternoon as they can without drying out and getting too hot during the day. They don't flower very often, but when they do, they get flower stalks on them that can be 2 feet up to maybe 7 feet or more. Oh, here's a big old bumblebee floating around. You can see she's got some pollen on her legs that she's carrying with her. So apparently the pollen from wild lupin is pretty bright orange. And this is one last plant I'm going to show you. It's not flowering yet, but it's still fairly conspicuous. It sort of has a lily look about it, and the leaves sheath together in the stalks. And then also if you break a leaf and then touch the sap, it's sort of like a sticky clear sap that comes out of it. This is spiderwort. Spiderwort will be blooming pretty soon, and it has usually deep purple flowers. I also found a white spiderwort last year, which is very cool. One more shot of this guy if I can get over. All right, well, that's all I've got for you guys today. I want to try to keep this update short, but I do encourage you to visit Erstad Prairie. It's very easy to access. There's a parking lot. Like I said, it's right off of Schoenberg Marsh. And it's on the far north end of Harvey Road. If you use Google Maps, type in Erstad Prairie, it'll come up for you. And like I said, there's a parking lot and good trails. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comment box, and we will try to get to those as soon as possible. If I were to guess, these lupins will be flowering really hard for the next week or so, and then they will start to decline. So I encourage you to come and check them out before they start to lose their color. Like I said before, if you've got some binoculars, feel free to bring those also. It should help a lot with your birding. All right, well, that's all I've got for you. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the day.